Yo, what's going on, guys? Brian and Jim here from DrinkABeerandPlayAGame, and today we continue our Simpsons-a-thon month, and we're moving away from the 16-bit era and all the Game Boy games and moving on to the post-modern era. We're looking at the Simpsons wrestling game for the PlayStation.
This game was released surprisingly late in the PlayStation's life cycle in 2001. It was developed by Big Ape Entertainment. What did they make? Well, they weren't around for a long time, but they made a few licensed games. Namely, the game for Star Wars Episode 1, Simpsons Wrestling, and Celebrity Deathmatch. So, that's kind of cool, even though they're all kind of notoriously below average games.
Alright, wrestling fans, let's take a look at these graphics. Now, right off the bat, I'm going to say, it is later in a PlayStation's life, so it should be capable of much more, and we did factor that into our score. But really, it's not bad. They're pretty decent 3D renditions of The Simpsons, and to my knowledge, this is the first game to feature The Simpsons in a 3D atmosphere, so it gets kudos there. You have some people in the crowd, and they all look like the way they are, even though they're really just 2D images that angle as you move towards or away from them. I'm not going to hate too much. The game looks fine for what it's supposed to be. You're just two people in a wrestling ring. Would have liked to see maybe a little bit more diversity, but they do try with some different levels. Here's our breakdown. I gave it a 6, Jim gave it a 7, and I'm going to add 1 beer for Barney's beer holding ability.
Alright, the sound. It's okay. You get a lot of voiceover work, and you get, the people talking to each other before each match. And actually, depending on the characters, there's different sayings that the characters do.
You couldn't scare me on the scariest day of your life if you had an electrified scaring machine.
So, that's actually kind of cool. The music in the game, it's fine. It's very upbeat. It's weirdly a mix of like rock and techno and some funk. But it's all it's forgettable. It's bland. It's not bad. It's there. This is no Danny Elfman here. But it gets the job done. It's fine. The sound effects in the game, it seems as though the PlayStation could do a lot more than what's provided. Overall, it's slightly above average. Brian gave it a 6. I gave it a 5. So, I'll add another beer to the beer requirement meter, just because, hell, a little bit more alcohol. Maybe the thumping tunes can get you going, man. Huh?
Alright, dudes, let's talk about the control. See what I did there?
Cowabunga!
Ah! Bitch! Anyway, the control. I'm glad to know that one thing stayed constant with the Simpsons game, even though they made a jump from 16-bit to the Sony PlayStation. The control sucks! I don't like it. It's a button masher for a wrestling game, which, fine. I'll deal with. It's not really a wrestling game. It's more a fighting game. I don't even know what you want to call it. They called it wrestling, but trying to do the basics of wrestling, like grabbing your opponent or throwing them into the ropes, are so fucking finicky. They're the most annoying shits in the world. Watch this. Look how long it takes to grab someone. And even when you do, you're lucky if you actually get a hold of them. Throwing in the ropes, they do this weird stiff animation where they bounce towards you and you can't really do a rebound move, so it sucked. The actual inputs might have been fast enough, but yeah, it's just your basic button masher. If you're going against a younger cousin of yours or someone, they're probably going to kick your ass because they're just going to keep hitting the button, knock you down, and then you can just spam the shit out of hits. So yeah, fuck that. Here's our breakdown. You see we gave it 4s. I'm giving it 2 more beers.
Oh, the gameplay. Oh, the gameplay. It's called The Simpsons Wrestling, but by this time, we had no mercy, alright? We had one of the best games of all time, and this is not that. This barely constitutes as a wrestling game, really. Like Bryce says, it's kind of a fighting game and a wrestling game body. You're not even trying to pull off any wrestling moves. It's just really item collection and kind of waiting until your power bar is filled up to just spam the more stronger attacks. It's like those games from the early 90s on the Genesis or the Super NES, where it's just a lot of punches and impossible grapples. It's just kind of along those lines. If you told me, hey, we're going to put The Simpsons in a wrestling game, hey, there's 2 things I love, this should be awesome. But no, it's terrible. One more thing, the difficulty spike. Holy tit fucking shit. You go from easy win to not as easy win to decently hard win to goddamn impossible in 4 rounds. By the time you get to Mr. Burns and Smithers, you're done. You might as well throw the game out because you're not getting any farther. And if you are, you know what? I'll say it. You're better gamers than we are. So I'm giving it 4 beers just because of the goddamn difficulty, the lack of fun, the lack of innovation, the wasted opportunity, and just everything about it in general. I hate it! Whew. Alright. Now that I got that out of my system, the scores. Brian gave it a 4. I gave it a 3. It's just bad.
Okay, so the originality, this is probably the only area in this game where me and Jim just disagree slightly. I gave it a little higher for the reasons I mentioned earlier. It's the first Simpsons game where they're actually 3D. They tried something with a Simpsons fighter / wrestling game. We hadn't seen that before. And it's the only wrestling game, to my knowledge, that has power-ups that abundant. Now, I'm sure people might leave comments and say, oh, you're forgetting this game. Well, yeah, I forget right now because I'm drunk. So get over it.
You want us to know it? Donate it.
So other than those few points, yeah, it's nothing too crazy. Here's our breakdown. I gave it a 6. Jim gave it a 4. It averages out to a 5. So, yeah, it's very average. I'll add 1 beer to Mir just because Jim touches himself.
Alright, the replayability. Surprisingly, it's a bright spot. Why? Well, you have a lot to unlock. There's a lot of characters in the game, 18 in total. You only start with a few, so you have to go through and, do a lot of work to unlock them, play through the game. As we said, the game's hard as shit, so you're going to be playing it a lot. Also, the main crux of the replayability, if you're a fan of The Simpsons, you're going to play it because you like The Simpsons, and you want to play a goofy game about The Simpsons that somewhat works. So, if you're drinking with a buddy, you can have fun with this. You're not going to sit around going, oh, this is a great game, but you'll have a lot of close fights trying to run for the objects and just trying to piss off your friend, opponent, whatever you want to call it. We gave it 8s. You don't even need to add a beer. There's a lot of replayability here. The only reason it didn't get 10s is just because it's not a great game and it's a button masher.
Overall, what's left to say? By no means is this a great game. By no means is this really even a good game. But we are kind of surprised. We've seen some game reviews where this is sported as the worst wrestling game or the worst fighting game or the worst Simpsons game. No. It is none of those things. True as it may be, there's a lot of flaws. There is, like Jim said, some fun to be had here. Even if it's just reliving nostalgic memories with your buddies about over corny Simpsons lines and getting those power-ups make some frantic gameplay. So in the end, I gave it a 5, Jim gave it a 4, rounds out to a 4.5, and we think that's fair for this game. I'm going to add 1 more beer just because it should have been so much better. It really should have. And it's unfortunate that they fucked it up this much. So as far as the beer pairings go, we really need something here that's going to give you a lot of flavor. It's going to get you drunk as shit, and it's going to enhance the shit-tastical experience. Once again, this is one you should really play with a friend and not by yourself. So we're going to go with Dogfish Head Piercing Pills. A lot of flavor in that beer, and its alcohol content is strong enough to fuck you up. So pick up a 6-pack or 2, play with a friend, and just sit back and laugh your ass off. Alright guys, as always, thanks a lot for watching. Make sure you give us a thumbs up or hit subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Be sure to check out some of our other Simpsons game reviews in the description below, and come back tomorrow for another Simpsons game review.